Death and loss are a part of life, even if they aren't always topics we're fully comfortable discussing. Whether you're young or old, healthy or sick, dealing with our own mortality is an essential part of being human. We talked to two experts about how we can prepare for the end. The first is Katie Butler, a journalist and author of the book The Art of Dying Well, a practical guide to a good end of life. She says that the role death plays in our lives has changed dramatically over time.
200 years ago, people tended to die all through the lifespan, but relatively rapidly because there was really no effective medicine. And now, dying takes place in what I call a gray zone between active living and active dying. And this gray zone can last, instead of weeks or months, it can last years or even decades. And as a society, we have not caught up with this change in the shape of death. Because modern medicine is so successful, we really, in a sense, don't know when to stop. And 17% of people now die in an intensive care unit, and that is an environment that is, as a friend of mine says, technology-rich and relationship-poor. And so my hope is that by encouraging people to really think about this ahead of time, they can maintain their autonomy. They can be more empowered. They can make plans. And there's a huge amount of positives that come out of having the spiritual maturity to consider the end of your own life.
Butler is passionate about helping people achieve the goal of dying well. But what does dying well really mean? She read an excerpt from her book to explain the idea.
We live in a time when advanced medicine wards off death far better than it helps us prepare for peaceful ones. We feel the loss. Many of us hunger to restore a sense of ceremony, community, and yes, even beauty to our final passage. We want more than pain control and a clean bed. We hope to die well. People who are willing to contemplate their aging, vulnerability, and mortality often live better lives in old age and illness and experience better deaths than those who don't. They keep shaping lives of comfort, joy, and meaning even as their bodies decline. They get clear-eyed about the trajectory of their illnesses so they can plan. They regard their doctors as their consultants, not their bosses. And they seek out medical allies who can help them thrive, even in face of disappointment and adversity. And they prepare for a good death.
Of course, considering the end of your own life often seems scary or daunting, and it can just seem a whole lot easier to ignore that reality altogether. Butler says she does have some tips for how people can ease themselves into getting their affairs in order in case the unthinkable happens.
I think what's actually easiest for people is to start with the music that they would like to have played at their memorial service or what they would like said at their memorial service. Somehow that's a lot easier as a way into this as getting straight into the medical details. So that's my first advice. And then to think about how would you like to die and work back from there to see that you can make that happen. For 3/4 of people, it's important to die at home. Is there certain music you would like playing? Would you like somebody to gurney you into the woods or under the stars? Really, just let your imagination go for what would feel like a good death to you. And then I think there are other forms of preparation that are extremely important. I think a lot of people just do them intuitively, but the hospice movement phrases them as, thank you, I love you, please forgive me, I forgive you, and goodbye. And I think we can all clean up our relationships on an ongoing basis with those 5 points.
Butler says the fruits of someone getting their affairs in order can mean an easier acceptance process for their loved ones upon their death. And she's seen that scenario play out firsthand when her good friend lost his mother.
He said for years she kept talking to him to get him used to the idea that eventually she was going to die. You know, he came over to her house, she would talk about who is going to get that vase or who's going to get that picture. And at first he was very much like, no, Mom, don't be morbid. But actually, it really helped him because by the time she was actually dying, and she died a good death in a hospice unit, he was ready.
Of course, preparing yourself for a good death also means setting a care plan for yourself should illness or an accident significantly alter your quality of life. That's where people like Dr. Sunita Puri can help. She's the medical director of palliative medicine at the University of Southern California and author of the book, That Good Night: Life and Medicine in the 11th Hour. She says that it's essential people consider what kind of care they'd want to receive and what care they wouldn't want to receive, and to properly document those wishes.
We can plan to make sure that our decisions are known and respected. One of the most common ways people do that is by filling out advanced care planning documents, including an advanced directive. And an advanced directive, which is it tends not to be a uniform form. There's different versions of them, but they almost all include a space to designate who is your medical decision maker if you can't make your own decisions. So in other words, who would be able to verbalize your wishes on your behalf if you were unable to speak to your doctors? This is distinct from a family member telling the doctor to do what they want. It's really your family member being directed to say what you would want for yourself. So that's the responsibility of a surrogate decision maker, and you can list that person in an advance directive. Advance directives also include sections where you can designate whether you'd want to be an organ donor and whether, if you were in a serious critical situation, whether you would want certain invasive life support techniques like CPR or cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or being intubated and attached to a breathing machine if you couldn't breathe on your own.
In addition to advanced care plans, ensuring yourself as peaceful a death as possible also means having a good, honest relationship with your care providers. Puri says those relationships can sometimes be made messy by a medical culture that aims to preserve life at all costs, even when quality of life is being put in jeopardy.
Because we're so hardwired to fix what we can and to cure and to lengthen people's lives, we lose sight of the complex interplay between organ systems and how that influences someone's day-to-day quality of life. And I think one way to change this would be for medical education to take more seriously the need to introduce the idea that medicine's obligation is not just to enable survival and to fix problems in organ systems. It's our main obligation as doctors is to enable well-being and to enable people to have the best quality of life possible. And sometimes that means saying we have reached the limits of what our therapies can do to help you. And doing more technologically may be doing less for you as a human being.
Puri says that if a patient does reach the point that cure seems virtually impossible, then it's time for that patient's doctor to be as honest and clear as possible.
The beginning of good care, when we know cure isn't possible, begins with an acknowledgement that cure isn't possible. And I think we don't always do that in clear and explicit language. And the importance of having that sort of conversation cannot be emphasized because it helps patients and their families to plan for the best case scenario and the harder scenario. So I would say that's the starting point for good care in the 11th hour, is a really open, clear, compassionate conversation about the fact that we are in the 11th hour.
And whenever that time comes, where our lives have to come to an end, the whole process can go a lot smoother if clear end-of-life plans have been made. Death will never be easy, but the end of life is inevitable, and both Butler and Puri say it can be made peaceful.
I do think it's very important to bring in some sense of ritual or element of the sacred, however you define that, into this process. So don't be afraid to take over the room. Bring in those LED fake candles or flowers or photographs. Create a little altar on the bedside table. I've known of people do things like get someone moved out of a dark ICU room and into a room with more light and fresh air so that dying could be a more pleasant process for everybody involved.
For more information about our guests, as well as links to buy Katie Butler's book, The Art of Dying Well, A Practical Guide to a Good End of Life, and Dr. Sunita Puri's book, That Good Night, Life and Medicine in the 11th Hour, visit our site at viewpointsonline.net. You can find us on Twitter at ViewpointsRadio. To hear our full archive of full episodes, you can search Viewpoints on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts. I'm Gary Price.
There may be no car racing enthusiast quite like comedian, author, and podcaster Adam Carolla. He holds the Guinness Book of Records for the most downloaded podcasts and loves racing in one of his classic cars. Every time he takes the wheel, he seizes the opportunity to live a more exhilarating life. Now, Castrol Edge's Live on the Edge campaign shines a light on Carolla's unique character in its latest film short, Rain Starts Play.
For most people, rain stops play. For me, rain starts play. It's an opportunity, just as everything can be. It's my unceasing pursuit of fun and adventure to make my life more exhilarating. That's been the key to my success and happiness. I believe that life is exhilarating in everyday moments. Seize the opportunities. Don't run away.
Visit Castrol USA on YouTube to see Rain Starts Play, the latest Live on the Edge film featuring Adam Carolla. Take a look at how Adam seizes exhilaration in all that he does. Rain Starts Play on Castrol USA YouTube. Live on the Edge.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control of your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problem now by calling the experts at U.S. Tax Shield and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, so call now. 800-568-1647. That's 800-568-1647. U.S. Tax Shield. 800-568-1647.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to learn about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on iTunes. Plus, you'll always find podcasts of our segments and information about our guests at viewpointsonline.net. Join us again next week for your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.